Wow, very interesting poll by, I believe, The Economist and YouGov. So it's an economist, I guess, weighted poll using YouGov data. I think that's how that works. And YouGov is exclusively online, so I guess take this for what you will. It's one mode of polling. But it was on the favorability of various presidential candidates, everybody from Marianne Williamson to Donald J. Trump, the convict-in-chief. And the interesting thing was that almost everyone had a net unfavorable rating, meaning more people had a unfavorable view of these candidates than a favorable one. And so you look at Biden, he has a -9 favorability rating, meaning 9% more people view him unfavorably than favorably. I think for his it was like 52% unfavorable to like 43. I can't remember the exact numbers. It was somewhere around there. Donald Trump, very similar. He had a -10% favorability rating. Ron DeSantis had a -5% favorability rating. So not as bad, I guess, as Biden and Trump, but you also could say that there's going to be more undecided people when it comes to DeSantis because he's not as well known and he hasn't had as much time to be vilified by the media and by really the whole of the country. They haven't had enough time to really sink their teeth into hating Ron DeSantis. And so there's a good chance that his net unfavorable rating, may go down as more people learn about him. Joe Biden and Donald Trump, however, I think they're pretty well-established figures. Everyone has an opinion on them. Their favorability ratings, you can pretty much take them to the bank. Now, there is someone quite notable who I've not mentioned. Someone who is, you could say, the fourth player in the presidential race. There are two serious candidates on the Republican side, and there are two serious candidates on the Democratic side. Of course, the candidate who I've not mentioned yet is Mike Pence. I'm just kidding. Mike Pence, though, had a net negative of 17 points. That's pretty remarkable. That means that neither the Republicans nor the Democrats really think much of the guy. A lot of times you might be able to get higher favorability ratings for certain Republicans, who are hated by the base, because Democrats look at them and go, well, he's one of the sensible Republicans, like John Kasich or John McCain or something like that. These terrible Republicans who are wrong on everything. But Democrat voters who would never actually vote for them will say, you know what, that guy's not so bad. Kind of like Brian Kemp type people. They go, well, I wouldn't vote for Brian Kemp, but he sure did stick it to Trump, so he's not all bad. Mike Pence not benefiting from any of that. He's just plain unpopular amongst everyone. But in all seriousness, the candidate who I have not yet mentioned and whose name is probably in the title is Robert F. Kennedy Jr., today's guest on the Joe Rogan Experience. If you are listening to this on the day that I post it. I haven't had a chance to listen to RFK on Rogan yet, but I imagine it will be an explosive interview that I would like to say would rocket him to stardom and help him in the polls. But as we learned in 2020 with Tulsi Gabbard and Andrew Yang, that really didn't happen. Joe Rogan, I think, pretty strongly supported both of those folks, and I think he outright endorsed Tulsi, and she still went nowhere. Now, she is, a star in certain circles. If I met her, I don't know. I'm not as much of a Tulsi fangirl as some people, but I do think, hey, she's pretty great. But still, appearing on the Joe Rogan Experience and being strongly supported by him was not enough to make her a mainstream figure. Now, who knows? Maybe since 2020, Joe Rogan has become more influential. I think there's a good chance of that. Maybe he's more popular, more people listen. I don't know. But we won't know the effects of that for some time. This poll was taken long before RFK ever appeared on the Joe Rogan Experience. And so this data is based on everything before this. And the results are quite compelling. They're quite stunning. He not only has the highest favorability, just outright favorability rating, he has the highest net favorability rating of any of these candidates by far at positive 19. Okay? Only 30% of people have an unfavorable view of RFK Jr. 49% have a positive view of the guy. Now, that's pretty remarkable. Now, if he's only at 49 and 30, what's that put together? 79%. So there's a 21% undecided. That's a pretty big number. That's a lot of persuadable people. Those people could be persuaded to oppose him, yes. Are all of them going to be persuaded to oppose him? No. So I don't think that his unfavorability rating is going to hit 50% like Biden's or Trump's, because he's already at 49% favorable. Now, could you shave off some of his 49% favorability ratings? Maybe you have some Democrats who say, oh, you have a favorable view of him because they remember JFK and RFK Sr., and they go, oh, well, he's just like the other Kennedys, so I should like him. But then they'll find out, oh my gosh, he supported ivermectin, and that makes him a bad guy. He's worse than Trump. Yes, I could see some of the people in this current 49% saying, you know what, actually, I don't have a favorable view of him anymore now that I know more about him. But I think that will be made up by people from the 21% who hear about him and say, you know what, I like that guy. So there's a good chance that RFK Jr. could have a 50% plus favorability rating and maintain a overall net favorability rating, positive net favorability rating. And this is something pretty rare in American politics. You don't have people who are just generally well-liked anymore. And that could give him a shot in the primary, as well as make him perhaps an electoral juggernaut in a general election. Let's say you put up RFK Jr. against Trump. Sure, Trump supporters could say, well, sure, we support Trump. But are they going to say that they hate RFK? A lot of them I don't think will. A lot of them right now probably are amongst that group who say, I have a favorable view of this guy, even though I support a different candidate. Certainly more people who have a favorable view of RFK Jr. than Ron DeSantis. And I think that's interesting in and of itself. I think that there are a lot of ancestral Democrats, people who voted Democrat for much of their life, or whose parents voted Democrat in places like western North Carolina and the Rust Belt, who are very much attracted to Trump, but could be persuaded to come back over to the Democratic Party, and perhaps are still even registered Democrats themselves, who would vote for an RFK Jr. and thus doom Donald J. Trump in a general election. And these people certainly would not be won over by a DeSantis. I think they'd be even less likely to vote for DeSantis than RFK. These are people who feel left behind by the Democratic Party, and who, in many cases, I think would be happy to go back to their old home if they felt like they had a place there. I think that if I were a Democratic operative and I actually cared about winning, and I didn't just care about, whatever it is they're preserving the deep state power, or further entrenching the consultant class, or sticking it to Putin, whatever that means. If I wasn't a neocon Democrat, I would probably look at these poll results for RFK and say, hey, you know what? We might be better off nominating that guy who, while not a young man, is still lucid. He's got all his faculties. People like him. He comes across well. He's got good name, as good a name recognition as Joe Biden, easily as good a name recognition. Despite the fact that he does have a vocal disability, you don't have to hide that behind a fake speech impediment like Joe Biden, because when he speaks and he has a problem speaking, it's physical, it's not mental. And he's someone who has a chance, I think, at least, of shredding Donald J. Trump in a debate. Hell, in the second debate in 2020, Joe Biden, all hyped up on uppers, shredded Donald J. Trump in a debate. So this RFK guy, I think if you just look at it objectively, he's got a better chance. He'd be a better nominee for the Democrats than Biden. So, with that said, I will see you folks back here tomorrow.